Okay, dear Venerable Brothers, Venerable Sisters and Dhamma friends, we are going to start the second Dhamma discussion of this 315th retreat conducted at Nissarana. So Mrs. Rupika is ready with the written questions, so we will start the session with written questions.
Venerable Sir, we have 10 written questions and 3 complaints about the sound.
I think Shehan already informed them, so we'll see how we can... Probably we can recognize it's just a sound. So we'll see. Very strong, yes. Now actually they are making just above this roof, so that would be very inconvenient, yeah.
Walking. Initially I noticed each foot touching the ground alternatively. After some time, started realizing that it touches the ground in an order: heel, forefront, forefoot and then toes. Lifting the sole happened in same order. The transferring of body weight from one foot to the other was also noticed. After some time, I was concentrating more on the feeling of weight being shifted in a very organized manner onto heel, forefoot and toes. Lifting and relaxing of weight happened in the same order. A nice rhythm was generated in my mind along with the shifting of weight during walking. I could concentrate for a longer period without getting distracted by thoughts. Felt happy and relaxed.
That's all. So it's good, by the way, if you could add a little bit more about sitting. So I think that is not included. Is it the same? Yeah, okay.
I have not been able to focus well on my in-breath, out-breath up to now. I have been able to establish awareness on my body posture and keep attention on present moment, but getting distracted by building bodily pains, which I
thought building problem.
which I feel gradually becoming less. I tend to get sleepy as well, which prevent me focusing well on breath. Brushing teeth. I started the process mindfully and felt the different feelings to hand when touching teeth, within brackets hard, and gums, within brackets soft. Then thoughts invaded and I lost the focus for a while. When I returned to my object again, I realized the brushing process has been done in the same order which I am used to do, though I was wandering far away with my thoughts. My hand has been continuing the job without me controlling. Is it correct to say I am brushing my teeth, or isn't it a process which happens as pre-planned and I am only the observer?
Correct, yeah. That's where we need to arrive very much like. So as even yesterday we discussed, so even during the walking, that is what has to happen. At the beginning I am there and I am meditating, I am walking. So we do a kind of enforcement of mindfulness or deliberate inclusion of mindfulness. So that is not that convenient in a way. But anyway, we have to do that at the beginning because otherwise mind get distracted. So the mind is used to get distracted. So whatever sounds, sights, etc. So they are constantly pulling us outside. But the mindfulness help us to come back within us. So kind of an introspective type of attitude to develop. And once that is being developed, so that means fairly it is naturally flowing, and we simply have to observe that. So it is not that now I am purposely, deliberately trying to maintain mindfulness, but rather mindfulness is there. So that's why we need to spread mindfulness as much as possible, continuously as much as possible. Then it becomes kind of a default nature of the mind. So currently it is not the default nature of mind. Currently mind wandering very much is the default, but now we need to change it to the opposite side. So can we make the body simply moving by itself and we do a very nice observation, and that is also not that effortful, but we are maintaining a proper balance. If you are trying to put too much effort in this observation process, that's also feel like heavy. So your mind may feel more tired after some time. But if you are not putting enough effort, then mind starts wandering. So that's where we need to find out. Each session we need to find out practically. So what is this middle range, comfortable range that we need to maintain our attention so that we are not putting unnecessary effort, and on the other hand we are not being distracted. So both sides we need to take care. So then only we are aware, okay, now there's a smooth balance is there. Mind is fully aware with the physical process, and other than that there is nothing else. This not that I trying to do anything, but generation of I, the inclusion of I is also has disappeared. That kind of self-ego type of thing is also disappeared. It's a very beautiful, natural, ordinary process is happening, and that the body is very aware how to do it. I don't need to too much interrupt in that. So my duty is to carefully observe what is really going on. So during that observation also we can't find out the person. So that's why in the later situations, so they are introducing kind of a vipassana knowledge, what we call as nama rupa paricceda jnana, kind of division or distinguishing the name and the form, the materiality and the mentality. But we don't need to think too much about it. But if we can recognize, okay, there is a physical process going on, and there's a corresponding or happening at the same time, there's a mental process going on, that both these processes are well synchronized. So there is no any delay in this. So there's a physical process and the mental process is completely within it or with it. But it is not grasped and it is not distracted. So if we are able to do that, so that means we understood that proper balance. So that's why even yesterday I tried to emphasize during the Dhamma sermon also, that is where Buddha is telling, okay, there is suffering. So there is suffering. So like there is touch sensation, there is a sensation, there is a feeling, there is hardness, there is softness, there is in-breath, there is out-breath. So in other terms, what we are observing is nothing but the First Noble Truth. So some information, some say examples for the First Noble Truth. In terms of the Kayanupassana, that is the form aggregate that we are observing, but the interesting part is now we are not grasping it. Now it has to become very much like a mere aggregate, not a grasping aggregate. So we can discuss that later maybe during the Dhamma sermon. But very interesting how Buddha is making us kind of practically understand the First Noble Truth by going through the Satipatthana process, Satipatthana practice, mindfulness practice. Yeah.
Venerable Bhante, why are there many types of meditation even within Theravada? Like Mahasi method, Goenka method. What is the one that Buddha advised and this type of methods are same? Is it just the meditation objects? And was there any meditation timetable followed during Buddha's teachings? With sincere respect, Somasundaram.
Yeah. Actually, Buddha also has explained many methods. It is not just one method, because our characters are quite different. So one approach suitable for me might not be suitable to another person. So there may be certain common characteristics among us, among certain groups. For that particular group, there may be a particular method more suitable. But for another person, there may be another approach. So likewise, Buddha actually has described many approaches. So therefore, it is not that we need to find out one universal method, so everyone has to follow. That's a must. So we can't say like that. We can try few, and we need to recognize, okay, what is more appealing to us, more, say, successful within us. So where our mind gets properly concentrated, once it is concentrated, how we can successfully observe these things. But anyway, there are very common characteristics in many proper, correct meditation methods. Even though the beginning is different, but ultimately, or rather, say at a particular point, they have to diverge. They have to merge in a way. They have to merge to a certain very similar results, so that the yogis have to come across. Especially now, say for example, if I talk about Satipatthana, say Kayanupassana, there are 14 methods explained. And Vedananupasana, say one method we can say, but there are many examples are there. You can say that's one method. Chittanupassana also one method. In the Dhammanupassana there are 5 methods in a way. So, but ultimately all these things have to merge in a one very much like a unique result where our mind has to get released. That is also not the end. So that is where all these different approaches actually merge into a one kind of a result, one type of experience, irrespective of the path that we have taken. So likewise, even the Goenka method or Mahasi method or any other method, even though we give various labels, names, so rather than we thinking in that line, so if we are simply developing Buddha's teaching or the practice, but ultimately the result has to be very similar. Say, in the Goenka method, mostly the prominence has given to Vedananupassana. But Buddha has mentioned 4 Satipatthana, so therefore we don't need to say that we have to limit to that. But they also practice Satipatthana, the complete 4 Satipatthana in the later levels. So that is also there. In the Mahasi method is totally on Satipatthana. But the beginning, there are different approaches. Those are very, very beginning, early stages. Now, say for example, in the Mahasi method, they give prominence to noting and the rising and falling of the abdomen. So that is a very early stage of just entrance to the path. But once you are able to develop certain amount of mindfulness, so you can switch to another method also. It's not a big deal. Now, if you're practicing Anapanasati, then if you are facing certain kind of complications, you can easily switch to rising and falling and see whether you are getting any kind of a successful result. You don't need to struggle that I must practice Anapanasati. There are other alternative methods available. Many methods are available. And that's why in Nissarana we are not saying that we have to stick to Anapanasati. We have to stick to rising and falling. We are not telling like that. We can say, ask the yogis to recognize what is more prominent to you, what is more convenient to you, and accordingly we can guide. So that will be more convenient as far as I can see. So in the typical Sri Lankan Theravada tradition, so we can find out many methods available. So whatever convenient you can practice, you can see, and you can get the successful results as well. So there are, during the retreats, therefore many yogis are practicing Anapanasati. Many others are practicing rising and falling. Some are practicing just the posture. Walking actually we recommend to everyone. But later, slowly, they merge into a very similar kind of pattern. Some are actually, a majority are switching to Dhatu Manasikara, elements meditation. And some switch to Vedananupassana. And some slowly switch to Chittanupassana. So these are very common areas that we can see how yogis are, in a way, navigating in the path. So we don't need to have a kind of a stereotype model, okay, you need to have to strictly follow this or something like that. Many methods are available. So we can try many. Yeah.
This question is also similar. This is also from Mr. Somasundaram. How to check the progress and examine the Samatha Bhavana and Vipassana Bhavana to cross-check whether we are going in the right direction?
Yeah, actually we don't need to immediately find out or immediately strictly say that I am doing only Vipassana, I am doing only Samatha. We don't need to say like that, because they are also helping each other, and during the Buddha's time, so he recommend both. Now even yesterday, as I mentioned in the Anuggahita Sutta, so Samatha Anuggahita, Vipassana Anuggahita, both Buddha has recommended. So there are many advantages in both sides, and both are required, both are necessary. And depending on how we look at the object, how we handle the meditation object, there may be little differences, like whether we are giving more prominence to the concentration or whether we are giving more prominence to Vipassana. There may be certain differences we can see. But at the beginning, rather than thinking whether I am practicing Samatha or Vipassana, So better develop mindfulness. So mindfulness is very much like the founding stone to both. And say, in order to develop samadhi, concentration, you need mindfulness. In order to develop vipassana, still you need mindfulness. So mindfulness is very much like the ground. That's why the 4 foundations. So they are the 4 foundations, and that is a must in a way. So mindfulness in that sense take us also to the same ground. And when we are developing mindfulness, slowly, the say mind become fairly concentrated in one sense, and you can recognize that. So that's the beauty. So this is not simply believing. So this is not mere belief system. Rather, when you are practicing, you yourself have to see the progress. Say, for example, today when you are practicing walking meditation, suppose that you are able to mindfully walk 10 steps. So tomorrow you have to try your best to make it little bit more than 10, say 12, 15, something like that. So that indicates certain amount of progress. Maybe day after tomorrow, another few more steps. So likewise, this is a kind of an exercise. By following that exercise, you can understand, okay, that's a little development of mindfulness. So rather than mind become wandering and distracted, so it prefers to be with the mind, within the body, and now less distractions. Even mind get distracted, that wandering period become less and less. Say for example, today when you are practicing, your mind drifted and wandering happened, proliferation happened, and assume that it happened for 5 minutes. But tomorrow when you are continuing, so that 5 minutes has to reduce, maybe 4 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. So you have to quickly remember, I need to come back to the meditation object, something like that. But later, even that has to reduce, maybe immediately when the mind get distracted, drifted, you have to notice that. And on the other hand, the time period that we are involving in the meditation, so as much as possible the selected object what we have given as a primary object, so that association has to be further improved. Say today you are 5 steps, maybe tomorrow 10 steps, day after tomorrow 15 steps. So likewise, we ourselves should be able to recognize the growth in that sense. That's why it is very practical. I mean, we can't simply do it by knowing the theory. We have to practically get involved in the meditation. Then only we can recognize there's a certain quality, skill being developed within the mind as a result of this practice. And but anyway, as the question asks, so don't think too much about samatha and vipassana, all these things. For the time being, develop mindfulness. So mindfulness will pave the way to samatha as well as vipassana. So we can, during the discussion, we can see if we are more inclined towards samadhi, samatha, if we are going too much, then that we can recognize during the discussion, and then slowly switch to a more vipassana-oriented path. And in order to do vipassana, certain amount of concentration is necessary, even at the beginning. So that's why we can't say that immediately I am doing vipassana. So you need certain amount of clarity of the mind or focused attention to certain extent in order to recognize different phenomena. So that kind of skill is required. So that's why we need some time to develop these skills. Yeah.
Dear Bhante, sitting meditation, sat comfortably and was aware of awareness. Continued to just be. A bright light seemed to come on, then off, then on again. Opened my eyes, but there was nothing. Continued to be. Walking meditation. Walked at a pace of ease. Was aware of walking and the thought that arose. Kept walking till body got tired. Day to day. Was aware while writing this report. Stopped as gaps in thoughts arose. Noticed slight flutter of breath. Finished writing. Theruvan Saranai.
Good. It's like a poem. Good. Basically, it seems like you are... may I know who has written it? Okay. Yeah, you are a poet. Good. Basically, if you are able to recognize those gaps between thoughts, try to just rest there. So thoughts time to time arise, but that's a very silent awareness. So through the silent awareness, there is a thought pops up, and you see how it is coming out and how it is going, how it is arising, how it is passing away. So likewise, you see that, and then again you settle in the silence. So that silence become very much like the ground for the mind. So it's the default nature for the mind. And since I know about your practice, I can directly talk to you. So when mind is not grasping anything, so the mindfulness is very much like effortless. Hope you are following what I am talking, right? So now we are reaching. So when we practice mindfulness for a long time, and particularly the vipassana, when we are going through, so you may reach certain stage where mind is not grasping anything. So at that time, so we have to further and further expand that. So there's a long periods that mind doesn't associate anything. Anisitocha viharati. There is no any association for the mind. There is no any particular object we can say, okay, this is the object mind is associating or grasping, holding. There is nothing like that. So there's a certain period, there is nothing in the mind, sort of pure awareness is available, and we are simply dwelling in that. So simply just enjoy that very calm, relaxed, say in a way quite ordinary kind of awareness, which is effortless. So you don't need to do anything while there. It's a matter of just be there. So we are in a way, sometimes nowadays different names are given. So we are shifting from doing mode to being mode. So you're just in the being mode. So just be, just relax. And while we are, when we are doing that or consolidating that just be mode, then probably there are various thoughts arise, defilements again arise, or eye making happens, mind making happens. So these are the certain things that we are slowly recognizing, how still mind has these tendencies, how certain patterns of the mind available still. Even though mind, I recognize certain capacity to maintain the mind without grasping anything, still certain tendencies are still operating within the mind. So this is where we are going to more deeper patterns or deeper tendencies available in the mind. Time to time they show up, time to time they come to the surface, and we also get sometimes being carried away by them. We being fooled by them sometimes, but we need to recognize that. By recognizing, then we can overcome that, or we can come out of that without constantly being dragged away by that, followed by that. So this is the very much like the practice. So as much as possible now trying to dwell in that non-grasping state, familiarizing in that non-grasping state. So the mind may enjoy kind of a beautiful silence, just a mere silence, because no fabrications, no fantasizations, no proliferations, just a very calm, relaxed silence is there. But this silence awareness has a certain amount of depth. Yeah, hope you followed everything. Right.
Walking meditation. Walking on the choir mat in the dormitory corridor this morning. Went about 10 times up and down. Was aware of the contact between the foot and the choir mat. One choir mat was tightly knotted and it was very firm and bumpy. The other was lightly knotted and felt smoothness of the foot and more comfortable. Heard noises, example water running in the toilet, but continued to maintain awareness of the feet. From time to time, thoughts came to my mind, but within 1 to 2 steps was able to get back to the meditation object. Sitting meditation. Meditation object, breath. Was able to be aware of the point of contact and watch the breath more in and out. In-breath was shorter and out-breath was longer and seemed to move through both nostrils, though there were times when it was through right and left on past occasion. Gradually, the numbers of breaths slowing down, the duration of the in and out breaths also reducing slowly, and then there was an urge within to take a big breath. These cycles continued for about 40 minutes and due to bodily discomfort changed to walking meditation. Day-to-day activities. Partaking of morning dana, mindfully walked in line and served food sufficient to satisfy the hunger. Mindfully contemplated on the dana. Mindfully chewed each mouthful of food, firm seeds, mushy vegetables, watery greens.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, very much like trying to be aware of each and every activity. Seems you are very much recognized, understood the method. Just it's a matter of continuation.
Sitting meditation 1 hour in the afternoon. Starting in a comfortable cushion, I noticed my mind to be relaxed, calm and awake. The body felt also relaxed and mostly light. I started then with the attention of the breath, with clear noticing of sensations of in and out breath, then openly watching what the mind would do. I found sounds coming to my mind as well as thoughts, while still being in touch with the breath as well. Like this, I continued for around 20 minutes in a very relaxed manner. I saw them that thoughts sometimes lead to mind wandering and decided to put a little effort to focus more on body sensations. I investigated solidified sensations at the cause, thought and back area. I was able to watch them for around 3 minutes till thoughts came paralleled or mind wandered completely off. After half an hour, I noticed strong tiredness and opened my attention to sounds and subtle sensations on the skin. This woke me up a bit, but tiredness came back. I decided to invite a little curiosity to have a look at the tiredness. Seeing the heaviness of the eyes and dullness of the mind accelerating, there was a sudden little energy push and tiredness went away. I continued for around another 15 minutes watching the breath in a relaxed manner with more thoughts and mind wandering than in the beginning. I felt little more tired and little less aware of with some bodily discomforts compared to the beginning of the session.
Mm-hmm. So that is the end of the session. Basically, when we recognize the end of session, so sometimes there are certain features we can recognize. So at the beginning there was a kind of distraction, and slowly as a result of the practice, so we are developing mindfulness, the calming down, relaxing, everything happens smoothly, and then we are continuing the meditation for long, considerable period of time. Now after that is completed, then again distractions happen and say various body aches, pains happen. So that means session has completed almost like. And on the other hand, there are other symptoms, other say features we can recognize. Say as you enter the end, probably there may be yawning sometimes happen, and you feel that's either maybe tired or maybe little irrelevant thoughts can happen. So likewise, there is a wrong kind of going in a different track. That indicates again, okay, now we have reached the end of the session. So likewise, you can understand how your own kind of way, so how you are noting or how you are noticing the end of the session. And on the other hand, so when we are growing, so as even in the previous report also mentioned, so sometimes our mind is capable of overcoming all the hindrances. At that time, there may be a possibility of arising various lights or kind of a illuminated kind of mind. So that's all right. Only thing is that we are not make use of that light to go to deeper concentrations like jhanas. I'm not encouraging that here. But if necessary, one can do that. So that is where the samatha practice is aligned, particularly in the anapanasati level. But actually at that level, we can switch to vipassana. So that indicates that there's a significant amount of concentration is already developed, and we can continue in the vipassana path. So certain yogis already reported that they are getting those lights. So that's a good sign in a way that certain amount of concentration is already developed. And you just have to continue for some time, and probably your mind now can drift to other areas as well. And typically, so when you have the capacity to maintain your concentration for some time, say for example, now you are watching the breath and slowly you are reducing your distractions and capable of maintaining attention for 50 breaths continuously. Now further, when you are continuing, maybe 60 breaths, maybe 70 breaths, maybe 100 breaths continuously. So that indicates now we are developing fair amount of mindfulness already there, and mind is now getting concentrated. The focusing is now developed. Now less distractions. Your mind is capable of maintaining your attention considerably on a very ordinary neutral process. So that skill has been developed. And with that, now you can say whether you want to add more concentration or you need to add more investigation. So that is in a way as a kind of an answer to the previous question that someone asked, the samatha and vipassana. So once you come to this juncture where you can recognize whether I am giving prominence to vipassana or I am going to give more prominence to samatha so that I am going to deeper concentrations. So here at Nissarana we are not promoting too much about the deeper concentrations. We ask yogis to go into the vipassana. So we are adding a little bit of investigation to the picture. So that's what Buddha recommended in the Anapanasati Sutta. So when you have a fair amount of mindfulness, unbroken mindfulness, so there Buddha say, now you have to start developing Dhammavichaya, the investigation factor of the investigation enlightenment factor. Tatha sato viharanto tan dhammang panyaya pavichinati pavicharati parivimansang apacchati. So Buddha mentioned, so when you are having unwavering kind of mindfulness, okay, now you have already arrived the beginning of the sati sambojjhanga, the mindfulness enlightenment factor. Okay, let's now invite the next one, Dhammavichaya sambojjhanga. So you are trying to investigate whatever the phenomena. So that is more convenient and more in a way allowing us to go in a more balanced path where you have certain amount of samatha, certain amount of concentration, and to that now we are adding certain amount of investigation, so the wisdom. So we are planting the seeds of wisdom.
Venerable Swamin Wahanse, a walking meditation. I started walking and few steps walked with the thoughts. After that I felt cold when I touched the sand. I felt the sensation of the foot. Then I saw my foot are walking and it's fascinating like a machine. After that
can you repeat the last statement?
I felt the sensation of the foot. Then I saw my foot are walking and it's functioning like a machine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
After that I feel nothing but walking. Few thoughts came and went away. I heard sounds but it was not distracted. Sitting meditation. After the walking I sat down for sitting meditation. I felt the breath very softly. It was disappeared soon. I felt some sensation of the head and face. Within short time it was disappeared. Even I closed my eyes, it was not dark. The space in front of me is little brighter. Thoughts came time to time and I was fully aware that thoughts are coming. When I was there without any thought, I saw the lighter background in front of my eyes. I heard background sounds and observed everything. I clearly see the mind is calm and not attaching with them. Theruvan Saranai.
Yeah, just continue. I mean, you are doing all right. So basically that one statement I like to highlight. So you are feeling that body is like a machine or walking like a machine. So you like an observer. So different kind of perceptions, such perceptions can happen. So typically we have the perception that I am there, I am the one walking. So that is in a way wrong type of perception. But later, as we continue the practice, we may feel like a different perception, like okay, a machine is walking and I am simply observing, or observation is happening separately, or robot is walking and observation happens separately, or kind of rowing a boat is happening, something similar is happening, observation happens separately. Riding a bicycle is happening, observation happens separately. So likewise, our perception has a significant change at that level. That is good in a way. So we are simplifying our all the unnecessary conceptual perceptions are discarded, abandoned temporarily, and we are having a very easy kind of a perception, very lighter kind of a perception, what's really going on. And there it's a matter of recognizing all that subtle sensations, and now discarding that what we call the perception, now we are giving more emphasis to the sensations, element characteristics. So that is the next stage. So these stages are beautifully explained by Sayadaw U Pandita. There's a very beautiful book if you like to read. It's called Paving the Way. Paving the Way by Sayadaw U Pandita. And it has been translated to Sinhala by Most Venerable Dhammajiva Mahathero, called Yogavachara Margopadeshane. So this typically we, in the first few days, we recommend this book, very interesting, and the path, how it is growing stage by stage is explained very well there, briefly explained very well there. So it's very similar pattern that our minds are growing, especially in walking and sitting. As this kind of a pattern, actually we can recognize how the flowing happens, the continuation of the meditation happens. Yeah.
Theruvan Saranai Bante, walking meditation. My main focus today was walking meditation. I observed how the attention switches to the forward coming foot from the other foot in quick succession. It is not possible to observe the full cycle of both feet at the same time. I decided to observe one foot only. I saw how the contact created a sensation and how it ceased as that foot rose into the air. The cycle repeated. Sense impression, cessation, sense impression, cessation. The forest was very quiet and still. I felt equanimous to the quietness. Suddenly it was pierced by artificial vehicle sounds. I observed a feeling of aversion or dislike arose. I realized even though I thought I was equanimous or unattached to the quietness, I had been attached to the lack of sound. The Viparinama Dukkha explained yesterday at the Dhamma sermon came to my mind. This seems to be the case with equanimous feeling with other sense organs too. Example, the sand track was swept well, only dull, losing looking sand, nothing interesting. I felt equanimous or neutral towards the path until a bright yellow leaf fell on it and a sense of disorderliness generated feeling of aversion arose, making one realize I had been attached to the equanimous feeling and an underlying preference for the leaf-free, orderly but dull path. I also observed how a feeling arises with every sense organ contact before breaking out into proliferation. Whether the feeling is pleasant, neutral or unpleasant seems to be almost automatically predetermined. But I also observed how when a sound continues, even though it initially created a feeling of aversion or dislike, it can change to neutral as the mind focuses on another thing or ignores it. Please advise me if I am doing it correctly or incorrectly. Theruvan Saranai.
May I know who has written it? Yes. Okay. Probably you can come. Very interesting. Actually, there are very interesting points highlighted here. So one thing is the contact conditions feeling. So that she's almost touching that. So that is interesting part that we can discuss. Yeah. So basically, when it's a very easy way of approaching or accessing that what we call the principle of what we call idappaccheta. This makes that, or how to say, because of this that arises, or this arises. The principle of patissamuppada. So that we can recognize even through the walking meditation. So if you are interested, you can try. So when the foot is not touching, so there is no significant feeling. But as soon as it is being touched, now you can immediately recognize there's a significant feeling happens. So that the touch sensation is the one conditions that feeling to arise. So depending on the texture, the feeling also change. So if the texture, say when you are walking on the choir mat, it is one type of feeling. If you are walking on the, say, sand path, is another kind of feeling. So that the texture, that contact conditions the tone or the say quality of the feeling. So that is a very important way that how we are understanding. So this all feelings are conditioned. All feelings are dependent. So it is not that I make feelings, so I have full control of feelings, but these all feelings are conditioned. So it's a way of yoniso manasikara we are now trying to sort of ignite within ourselves, initiate within ourselves, rather than simply merely walking. So how we are trying to do a little bit of investigation. So not only that we understand, yes, feelings are arising and passing away, true, but if you are able to look at a little bit before that, then you can understand, yes, contact is the one conditions the feelings. So that's a very easy link that we can penetrate to the patissamuppada. So that when we are understanding that dependent nature of all different processes, so this is a very interesting and approach that we can get into that principle. This principle is the most important thing. So this conditions that, or this conditions this, and when this arises, that also arises, and when this is not available, that is not going to be available. As the passing away of this, that also passing away. So this conditionality is something that is very, very important to understand. And there also you have mentioned that a kind of a question, how something has ceased, but I don't know how it has ceased. Some kind of a statement is there. So I think the feeling has ceased because the contact also has ceased. So if you are carefully recognize, so the contact is the makes the necessary ground, necessary conditions for that feeling to arise. If not, the contact is available, feeling is not going to arise. So likewise, it's a very beautiful way of looking at things, so that we can even later, when we are looking at our own mind, then we can go further and further how different mentalities are arising, how a kind of a grasping process is happening. So that is how we are in a way dismantling the whole process. So now we are looking at the mind deeply rather than being carried away by thoughts. Now we are looking at what's really going on, how these conditions are happening, how the grasping is happening. So now we are carefully observing what's really going on. So that approach is very good. So you can continue the same approach. Yeah.
Like I've observed, like the feeling is almost like either it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It's almost like automatically generated. Is it like predetermined because of...
The determining factor is the contact.
Okay. Is it like affected by our previous experience?
No, we can't say so. We can say, so if I am going through a significant happiness, there may be a kind of a connection coming from my past karma also. That is true. But immediate cause is actually the contact, we can say. And even for karma, what is the cause? Contact. So if you refer, there's a beautiful sutta called Nibbedika Sutta. So there Buddha explains about karma. And the reason for karma is even the contact. So contact plays a big role in the teaching. So therefore, whenever we are coming across, say, a feeling, immediate cause is contact. Whenever we are going through certain perception, immediate cause is contact. Whenever we are going through sankhara, even formation, immediate cause is still contact. So contact plays a huge role in the generation of these different phenomena. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yes, come forward. Yeah, there's a question. Please, you can hold the mic.
I had a question or comment related to what's been discussed. Thank you for bringing up the contact. Contact lead to all the non-nam vedana sanya. In there also, Bhante, contact is avidya. Avidya base is one way, and the vidya contact based on avidya is what lead to more karma.
Actually, we can say like this. So if there is no ignorance, if there is no avijja, so that kind of contact cannot happen in a way. It doesn't mean that we may not feel. The feelings may happen, but we are not grasping it.
What I meant is, Bhante, that when we do yoniso manasikara, that's what, my understanding is that that's what lead to, like she mentioned that, okay, she felt neutral at the beginning when, like a certain conditions are there.
Right.
But if we practice yoniso manasikara, and that neutrality or upekka that we get wouldn't change how we feel. It's not because of a condition, as you know. So if we understand this is like you're saying, cause and effect, these causes created this and they come and pass away. And if we understand that based on no avidya, yoniso manasikara, then that neutrality or that upeksha
is in a way different.
Yes.
Different, because that is where it is not the mere upekka feeling that we are talking there. So the mind has the capacity to maintain an equanimity irrespective of the type of feeling that we are going through.
Exactly.
That's a different standard, different level actually. So the mind has a thorough understanding how these different phenomena are behaving. As a result of that, so mind can maintain a kind of an equanimous attitude irrespective of the different situations arising in the outside, or how they are influencing the mind. But the mind has the capacity to maintain in a very balanced, equanimous manner. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to bring it up, Bhante,
Right.
because if we know real characteristic of the dhatu, then that can lead to a certain equanimity that wouldn't shake. So
Correct. Definitely.
Thero answered.
Yeah, Thero answered.
And online question. Venerable Bhante, I am sending practice reports based on 1 hour walking, 35 minutes sitting and taking breakfast for your kind review and advice. Taking breakfast. Focused on taking the morning food. Initially focused on sitting posture and the way food plate is rest on the table. Appeared different shapes and color of food portions. Observed the way of mixing the food with hand and felt the hot sensations and cohesiveness. With the movement of hand with ball of food enters into the mouth and starts chewing and felt different tastes, hot sensation, and gradually food portion become changed. Warmness decreases, taste decreases, solidness decreases. Likewise, the gradual taking of food, felt hungry, become decreased and fulfilled. Saw the food plate also getting empty. Also observed distractions of attention on other various objects as well while taking the meal. That is sound, seeing, movements, etc. Walking. After taking the breakfast, practiced walking session on tiled floor inside the house. Walking path was about 25-foot stretch. While walking, tried to focus the attention on touching sensation of food. Walking rhythm, food is written. Walking rhythm was also prominent. Felt the pressure on the foot as touches the ground and lightness when not touching. Felt fairly coldness immediately when touches and felt relatively warmness when felt the full pressure. Observed various distraction of attention when focused on their various objects as well. That is, seeing the colors and shapes, sounds, drain and chain, thoughts, etc. Sitting. Following walking session practiced on sitting by keeping attention on body posture and comfort of sitting. Meanwhile, appeared intensive sound of grass cutting machine which is operated by neighbor. Focus the attention on prominent machine sound while knowing the sitting. Observe changing nature of the sound when touches the grass and stones. Also observe the humming sound when machine is run with the load. Observe the relative calmness when machine is off. Thank you. With metta.
Good. So we are also now experience some relative calmness. So I think there's nothing much to add. So you can continue the practice. Yeah.
Dinuka decades. Walking 30 minutes. Today I did walking meditation for 30 minutes. When I started my meditation, I was walking quite fast and nearer to the end, I started to slow down. I think that this might be because I got more calm nearer to the end. I also noticed that I tended to rely more on my left foot than on my right. I used my left foot to push myself forward and my right like a bridge into the next step. During my meditation practice, I noticed that I had an itch on my knee. However, I decided not to scratch it and observe it instead. Sitting meditation, 30 minutes. After my walking meditation, I moved on to half an hour sitting meditation. Today I noticed that I was calmer than usual. I think this is because I had just finished my walking meditation and that had calmed me down. I also noticed that I had a blocked nose. This made me rely on my mouth more than my nose. Today my breath was at a normal temperature. However, it was at a slightly slower rate because of my blister-blocked nose. At different points during my meditation, my Amma would come and gently remind me to focus on the breath. Most of the time, I found this quite helpful, but sometimes it broke my concentration. Near to the end of my meditation, I was getting a bit restless and wanted my meditation to end. However, I kept on going until the end.
That's all. Not continuing, right? So I think it's very interesting in a way how one is approaching or in a way slowly going deeper to the system, to the meditation. So we are starting with maybe a little bit of distracted mind. So our pace is little speed, and slowly when we are establishing mindfulness, so kind of a natural little slowing down. So we don't need to purposely do that. So when naturally our mind relax, calms down, the speed can come to a kind of very say normal, comfortable kind of a speed. So that is quite usual. And on the other hand, say if we are trying to do more careful investigation, that also can be a cause for slowing down. But only thing is we can't move if we are making it too slow down. So like slow motion we can't do. So there we have to find out kind of a moderate speed so that we can continue the practice. We can't simply say spend long time to walk. Rather the walking also has to happen in a comfortable speed. Then only we have to have a very quick mind so that while the body is walking we can quickly gather the information. We can quickly do the investigation. It seems like you are doing good. Even the the person also doing all right. So you can continue the practice. So that's all we have, right? The complaints.
Yes, Venerable
Complaints.
About the ears. Often there is extreme noise from the workers right above our heads now. Is there anything that can be changed about that?
We'll see. Viparinama dukkha. Already actually we'll see maybe we'll talk to the contractor. So he actually a contract working on. We'll see how to do it. So at least for a few days we'll stop. Yeah. Okay. So anything else you have to add, you like to add, or you want to ask a question? So we can spend few more minutes. Yeah, come please.
Reverend Bhante, you mentioned about when the mind comes to a peaceful place where there's no thoughts. In my practice, I try to get back to my breath again and again, thinking that now I am not on my object because it is a calm place and no thoughts are coming. So is it wrong?
No, that depends actually. So we can't say immediately that you have to continue as it is and just dwell in that peace for long time without doing anything. So it depends on how you continue your practice for long time. Now, say for example, at the beginning, assume that you are just a beginner, you just started, and the primary object is breathing, and as we are observing that, breathing also can calms down, so the breath can become more subtler, and there are no thoughts, and we can maintain that. That is also necessary. That is the fourth stage. So where Buddha mentioned, say when you do a little bit of investigation, whether it is longer, shorter, it is the beginning, the middle, the end. So that means you are doing a little bit of investigation. So then the calming down can happen. So at that calming down process, so there is a possibility that we can fall asleep. So that is one possibility. And on the other hand, we can get into a more deeper concentration. That is another possibility. And another possibility is probably we can get kind of rapturous kind of feelings. So more pleasant feelings. And we feel lighter in the body. So that also can happen. Or we can get completely distracted by a kind of a perception, kind of a sign happen in the mind. So various visualizations, that also can happen. There are many possibilities.
So if you are in a very happy state, just without any thoughts, am I to come back to my object?
Not necessary. Not necessary thing is, now in Anapanasati Sutta, so Buddha give a very beautiful way of looking at or practicing different Satipatthana using Anapanasati as a same kind of a practice. So one way is actually as the four stages mentioned there is for Kayanupassana, then the Vedananupassana, then the Chittanupassana, then the Dhammanupassana. So whenever a yogi is practicing Anapanasati and he or she is experiencing various rapturous feelings, if you can look at that objectively, that is where we are actually operating in the level of Vedananupassana. Piti sati sangvedi asasisamiti sikkati. Sukha pati sangvedi asasisamiti sikkati. So that is how Buddha explained that. So the body and the mind is now more pleasant and feelings are there, very beautiful, and the situation is very pleasant, happy. But rather than being attached to that, how about coming out of that and see that objectively? So this is pleasant feeling. This kind of a very beautiful feeling, appealing feeling. So it's a feeling, by the way. So typically we think, okay, we can do Vedananupassana only for the painful feelings. But here, a good opportunity is there for us to practice pleasurable feelings are there. Because Anapanasati has generated those different very pleasant feelings either in the body or in the mind. So that if we can look at as an outsider, then we are practicing Vedananupassana. So you don't need to switch back to Anapana, kind of the breath at that level. Rather, you can look at the feeling, how the feeling is generated, how the present feeling is arising, whether the intensity of that is decreasing or increasing or disappearing. So do I have if I am switched to another level, so into the Chittanupassana level, do I have a kind of attachment to this feeling? So then actually I am operating at a different level rather than switching to a breath. So we can make use of this opportunity to practice even Vedananupassana. Yeah.
One more question, Bhante.
Yeah.
About developing this upekha based on Yoniso Manasikara, I feel sometimes that when I develop upekha, it seems like inhuman because my reaction is very unattached. So then people think I have no feelings. And yes. Yeah. So what do I do about it?
No, thing is, let's have some wisdom also. It is not that we are trying to become robo, kind of an indifferent kind of attitude.
Yes.
But the thing is, when we are developing in the path, so certain amount of wisdom help us to avoid unnecessary intrusions, unnecessary interruptions. So we are now in a stage we can mind our own business without interrupting others. But that doesn't mean that when the necessity is there, when the requirement is there, and the responsibility is also coming to me, that I am ignoring that. So that balance, so typically what we call as panya and the karuna, so the wisdom and the compassion, so that has to be balanced. So if we only have compassion, then we are interrupting even others, and we can't mind our own business. So I am suffering, and basically every time thinking about someone else's affairs, and I have a kind of vested interest. But on the other hand, if only the wisdom is there, so we can't say it's the proper wisdom in a way. So then there is no compassion at all. I am becoming a very selfish person. We are not caring anything at all about the others. So having that both, certain amount of empathy, certain amount of compassion, but at the same time knowing the limit, knowing my limitations, and when to interrupt, when to participate, and when not to participate. Very difficult to find out this balance, by the way.
I understood. I have to balance between panya and karuna.
Karuna, yes. Yeah. So the model is the Buddha. So he has panya and as well as the compassion. Yeah. Okay, we have spent 1 hour, sharp 1 hour. So if there is nothing else, so then we can wind up the session, and we can start, or rather, you can continue your typical practice, and I will conduct the Dhamma sermon at 4 p.m. as usual. Thank you very much for participation.